Well, good morning, everybody. Ooh, let's do that again. I know it's kind of early. So, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to day 2. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. My name is Heather Foster, and according to the screen, I am the Senior Director of Global Public Policy at Lyft. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and my background is a little bit all over, but basically I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I started doing community service at a very early age. I would tag along with my dad, and little did I know that often we were knocking on doors to get people to vote. And so for me, I really got started in civic engagement at a young age. I loved it, and I went on to work in several political campaigns. Political campaigns brought me to public policy, and public policy is something I've been dedicated to pretty much since the beginning of my career. I've had the wonderful opportunity to work everywhere from the White House to agencies, and now I have the exciting opportunity to do public policy at Lyft. And so today we are going to be talking about collective movement. That's the name of this opening session today. We're going to take some time to think about what that is. So hopefully you're like me. And when I looked initially at the schedule and saw collective movement, I thought to myself, okay, what does that mean? Let's go to the Google. So according to Google, it's instances of collective behavior in which the number of individuals responding similarly to some event or experience increases over time until numerous people are affected across physically distant locations. Now, that's long, yes. But I thought to myself, wow, that sounds a little familiar. Like we have gone through a collective movement that gave us different types of behavior. You might be thinking, okay, what is she talking about? But let's think about the word that we all have kind of shivered when we hear, but it was a global pandemic, right? A few years ago. And that pandemic created a lot of collective movement. Whether it was this idea around social distancing, whether it was this idea around, do we mask? How do we think about how we engage? We saw all these patterns of behavior that we saw transcend across the country. Every region looked at it differently. And so often we see people can adopt different patterns of behavior. People can come together and make changes. And that's what I've had the opportunity to see so much within my career. Often we saw this when I worked in the federal government. We would go to one city and we would see an idea. Or often sometimes we would see, unfortunately, a tragic event take place. And then we'd see people march. Marching is a really big collective movement that we often see, right? Where people get the idea, we're gonna make some change. And the key about marches is that they always have a start and a finish. When I worked with the civil rights community, often they would identify that issue, they would identify the time, you would have your rally, you would have your speech, it's gonna happen. And everyone kind of marching and walking in the same direction spurs some collective movement. So we've also been able to do this at Lyft. You know, we have thought about transportation in a very innovative way, but also just thinking about the fact that it's so key to moving communities. So when it comes to public policy and quite often social action and change, you're not gonna be able to see things unless people have this opportunity to move, unless people have the opportunity for transportation. So that's what we've been thinking about as a company over the past couple of years. We have reached our 11th year, and we are constantly thinking about different ways. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some of these programs very briefly. We've been able to do a lot around jobs access, food access, vaccine access, voting access, and even disaster response. Being able to provide these methods of transportation, whether it's ride codes or partnerships with great partners, thinking about how do people use transportation. One of our most popular programs is our Jobs Access program. We are constantly getting calls about opportunities where people have been able to plug into this program. When you think about the change that we often need, people have to get to work. And so even when you get that new job, knowing that you've not only secured the ride for the very first day, but knowing that you also have a return ride home, that has changed the way that people have approached work. Food access. You know, unfortunately, we've seen some pretty tragedies in the past couple of years. One of the things we were able to activate on quickly last year was after the shooting in Buffalo, New York, we were able to provide transportation and food access to people who no longer were able to access that local grocery store. You know, that is something that we've been able to duplicate in other cities where identifying transportation deserts and coming together and realizing that, wow, now we can start moving people again towards resources and foods. And the last thing I want to bring up, which is one of our popular activities, is voting access. We are on the precipice of another election, believe it or not, big election year coming up very soon. And we've been able to do an amazing partnerships where we're able to provide rides to the polls for people across the country. Just having the discounted code, but also working with organizations, again, to ensure that people have opportunities to travel. So those are some of the things that we've done in terms of our collective movement. We're going to hear from an amazing group of panelists today, but because I see some of you all with your coffee and also in your phones, we are going to do a fun activity to kick things off. And with that, we are going to bring to the stage Renee Harris, a yoga and meditation teacher and Lululemon ambassador, to kick us off and get us started with some movement today. And just in case for all of our East Coast friends who might be still a little jet lagged, we're going to kick things off early. And here we go with Renee.